Hey everybody, it's been a while since I did one of these drive-through rundowns. I thought I'd do another one today. I just got Clash of the Cultures yesterday in the mail. So I've read the rulebook a few times now, read it again today, and I got some stuff set up. So I figured to get everybody sort of a nice rundown, a quick overview of the rules and some of the components that come in the game. Just a quick zoom out here. You can see I set up most of the components. I've got the map there set up in the middle. As a two-player game, and I've got a bunch of figures and all this stuff set up out here on my kitchen table. I'll go into some more detail here in a second. Just want to kind of give you an overview of the massive amount of pieces that come with this game. I think the box is like 200 or 150, something like that. Tons of plastic, tons of great components, so let's take a look. Okay, the first thing to look at here is the map setup here. And like I said, this is a two-player map. They got different configurations and how you lay out these sort of funky hex pieces here based on the number of players. So it spaces, everybody out evenly. Everybody's going to start there. You can see a little settler guy there with a little settlement, so your starting city, and you can see the other player there down at the end. And then as you explore, you're going to reveal these tiles here. And one of the interesting things about the map here, so these are going to normally be a little bit tighter, is you're going to have these little ocean spaces or these sea spaces. Well, players are going to get their little ships here like so. And basically what you could do is you're going to be on the ship here. Oop, that little sail fell out there. I just put these together, so I got to glue them maybe. The ships are going to go through here. And if they leave and go out this way on a sea, they can come back in on another part of the map. And so the sea is sort of, indicative of sort of a round earth idea. So you can leave one sea and then come back on the other side. That's kind of a neat little aspect. And then players are going to be able to sort of like mine or gather resources from the different hex spaces and the hex spaces that the city are on and all the adjacent spaces and get resources. But as you upgrade the different parts of the city, you're going to be able to get more and more resources. Now, one of the really cool component aspects of the game are these city pieces here. So you can see in the middle here I've got this little settlement. But then as I build new structures here, maybe like a fortress or different little things that are going to help me with my ideas and my happiness and my culture and things like that, they're all going to sort of like snap or fit in place here, and you can get a real visual sense of your city's growth and everything like that. And then let me just kind of quickly sort of scatter through some of these other plastic pieces. You can see you've got just tons of plastic pieces, look really good. Give you a nice close-up of one of these fortresses here. You got a little bit of detail on the figure like so, looks pretty nice. And then some of these brown pieces here, these dark brown pieces, those are the barbarian pieces like so. So when you reveal a tile like that, you can see in the middle there, you've got sort of a little barbarian thing. You're going to place a settlement like so in one of the hexes and then a little barbarian army guy. And speaking of armies, we've got all the little army guys set up over here. You can see they're sort of, generic. There's just sort of one guy and one type of army. And then in addition to that, the only other difference would be probably the ships that are going to do naval battles. So there's not a lot of variation, at least physically, with the different army units like so. Now, one of the other main components of the game here are these player boards like so, and these are really cool looking. So what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be tracking sort of your resources and then your happiness. You can see that there, as well as your culture. So as you get happiness, this is going to go up. As you get culture, this is going to go up. And then as you gather resources, you're going to get more stuff. So as you get food here, you're going to get more and more food. Now there is a food limit here. Just as an example, you've got some different technology that you've got to upgrade to be able to store more than 2 food. Now food is always going to be used to buy these technological upgrades. So you can see we've got different categories here. We've got agriculture, construction, maritime, education, all of this typical sort of Civ ideas here. And what you're going to do here, as you can see, this is really cool. So these little holes here are punched out. So you got cubes here. So if you learn farming, you're going to put the little cube in there like so. And it's going to sit nicely in there. So as you fill up this board, it's not going to, you're not going to be able to knock everything over as easily. Well, how this actually is going to work, just a quick little rules breakdown here, is when you start in one of these new categories like so, you've always got to start and pay 2 food or whatever it is to get into the first space. And then you can buy anything you want in that category. So first, if I wanted to do some agriculture, I've got to do farming, and then I've got to do, I can do whatever I want. The other thing to realize here is if you look, some of these have an outline. There's a yellow outline around some of these squares here, and there's a blue outline. So if you upgrade and get a technology or sort of a knowledge in these different things, like you can see I've got storage here. So you're no longer limited to 2 food, so I can get more than 2 food, but there's a yellow outline, and that is going to let me bump up my happiness here. And if I do it around a blue outline, I'm going to be able to get more culture. And I'm also going to be able to grab some of the different tokens here, which I'll be able to spend. So you can see you've got culture tokens here, you've got your happiness tokens, which on the other side of the happiness tokens are angry tokens, like so. Okay, so talking about happiness in angry cities and how that's going to affect sort of their production and their overall usefulness. Now, you can only upgrade a city to have a new component. Let's say you wanted to have a fortress. You can only, the number of upgrades that you have is limited by the number of total cities you have. So right now I've got 1 city, I can have 1 upgrade. If I went and founded another settlement here, which is what a settler is going to do, so they may move over here and then found a settlement, then now I have 2 different settlements, whoops, and so I can have 2 different upgrades. So I can maybe throw in a little temple there, and then maybe a port or something like that. If this was next to a sea space, I would do that. So now I have 2 cities, they can each have 2 upgrades. The other thing that's really cool is you can gather resources based on the number of upgrades that it has. So as the city visually improves, it's also going to be able to pull more resources out of the ground. So theoretically, this is going to, basically make it so that you can't just, build a giant city at the beginning. You've got to sort of expand your empire, expand your influence, use those extra resources in sort of an abstract way to, really visually and theoretically see your entire civilization grow up and sort of be evenly dispersed. Now, cities are going to get angry if they get sacked by barbarians here or attacked by somebody else. There may be an event like an earthquake or something. If a city also is used more than once per a round, so there's going to be turns. I'll talk about the turn structure in a second, but you can basically use a city once, that's fine. If you use it again, you're going to degrade its happiness level. So if we zoom over here to the components here, if you've maybe upgraded a city here to happy like so, we're going to go over here. So right now this city's neutral, there's no token. If I put this little happiness on there and we use it again, twice in a turn, it's going to go back to neutral. If you use it again a 3rd time, that city's going to become angry. And it's going to be pretty much crippled. They're not going to be very happy with you. You're only going to be able to, basically, the game considers it as a size 1. So no matter what size it is, if it's angry, it's size 1. Now if it's happy, it's basically +1. So for the purposes of like resource gathering and things like that, even though this has 3 pieces here, if it's happy, you can get that 4th resource on your turn. So that's a pretty interesting thing. You've got to sort of manage your internal strife as well as any outward strife and things like that. And that's really a nice thing. I like that they included that in this game. That's one of the things that makes me excited to play this game. So next to your main player board here, everybody's going to have a little player aid. You can store your happiness tokens and your culture tokens there. And it gives you a quick rundown of your turn. So basically, simply, you can advance in a track, and that's advancing over in the technology here. You pay 2 food, you can advance how I explained it earlier. You can found a city, you need a settler to do that. You can activate a city, which lets you build new units, collect resources, or increase the size of the city. The next thing you can do is you can move. So when you take a move action, you can move up to 3 units. So if you can pick basically a hex and split the hex and move them separately. That'll cost more than 1 movement per separation. So you can move some guys. You can do a civic improvement, or you can do cultural influence. Now the cultural influence is really, really interesting. So let's zoom over here again and take a look at this. So if you're within 2 spaces of a hex that another city is in, so let me grab yellow here, and let's just say for argument's sake he's here. Let's put him there. And he's got this here like so. So maybe blue wants to do sort of a cultural influence. They're going to roll a die here. On a 5 or a 6, I would have missed there. But on a 5 or a 6, I can take and remove his off the board here, and then take one of my fortresses from the supply. It doesn't really matter which. And I get that there. So at the end of the game, you're going to score points basically for all of your pieces that are on the board. Now this yellow player is still going to get the use of the fortress because it's technically his, but for purposes of scoring, it's yours. So you may say, okay, that's kind of dumb. I'm just going to roll a 5 or 6 and get it. Well, you can amass culture tokens and either use them to increase your die roll. So if you roll a 4, you could have spent a culture token and got the reward. Or you can even use the culture tokens to increase the space. So if he was 3 hexes away, I could have used the culture tokens to go from 1, 2 3, spend a culture token, and then I spend another culture token to move that to a 5. And I kind of glossed over civic improvement. That's when you actually go and improve the move of your city. So you can take an action to upgrade the move, especially if they're angry, you want to get them moved up. So when you ask them to gather resources or something like that on a future turn, then they'll be able to do a little bit better for you. And then just for component wise, we've got a little cheat sheet here. Basically all of the buildings cost the same. So they're going to cost you a food, an ore and a gold or something like that here. So how the game turn is going to work. Now the basic game is going to be a fixed number of rounds. You basically have 6 rounds comprised of 3 turns. So I'm going to take turn 1, and let's say we're doing a 2-player game. I'm going to take 3 actions, then my opponent's going to take 3 actions. We go to turn 2. We each take 3 actions. Turn 3, we each take 3 actions. Then we're going to have what's called a status phase. If we look down here, status phase is kind of interesting. So you're going to check and see if you've completed any objectives. I'll talk about that in a second. You're going to receive a free advance, and that's a free advance over here on the player board like so. So that's pretty cool. And then you're going to be able to draw cards. And then also, if you have a size 1 city, you can raise it and get rid of it, get some gold out of it. And then you're going to determine who the first player is. And honestly, I forget how that's done. So let's talk about the cards here, because that's really a big part of this phase as well as a big part of the game. So there's a couple of different decks of cards here. We've got action cards here, and players are going to get 1 of these to start the game. And we've also got objective cards here. Players are also going to get 1 of these. And then finally we've got the event cards. And so the event cards are a little interesting. What's going to happen here if we move over here to the player board here, you can see there's an event, another event, another event. Now when your culture or your happiness hits this, you're going to pull an event card and see what happens. So happiness hits it, you pull an event. Culture hits it, you hit an event. So you've got a possibility of triggering 6 events in the game. So if you look over here, the event is going to be, it seems like it's mostly positive. Anything that's negative is actually going to award you victory points, which is kind of interesting. But here's a positive one. You gain 3 food. And then this may say, find the nearest barbarian and have it attack you. So there's always going to be some text that you do, and then some kind of icon that has to do with barbarians usually. So either barbarians will get created on the board or they're going to attack you. So basically the idea here, which is kind of interesting, is that you've sort of grown in splendor, and and sort of everybody's more aware of you, so the barbarian's a little bit irritated by that, so they're going to engage in some activity. And then you're going to have a little bit of bonus for moving up the track like so. However, you could have something like an earthquake or something like that, where it's going to damage one of your cities. You've got to take out one of your buildings or something, but it's going to reward you with victory points because that was a historical, momentous event. So be that as it may. It does not seem like there's a whole ton of negative events, and there's even a variant in the rule book where you don't play without them. I mean, I'll have to play it to see. This is probably one of the aspects of the game. It doesn't worry me too much, but let's take a look at these cards over here. Okay, so we're going to get 1 action card and 1 objective card, and then each status phase, each round, we're going to draw a new one. Now these action cards seem really cool. I like these because they kind of remind me of a CDG, or almost like War of the Ring or something. So the action cards are split into 2 sections here, and you can keep this card here, play this card after getting an advance, and you get 2 idea resources. So you can keep this and play it sort of during your turn to get a little bonus effect. Or you can hang on to it here and play it during battle, and I'll talk quickly about battle in a second. So you've got this idea that you can keep it and get a bonus sort of culture release in a civic sense, or you can hold it for battle. So that's kind of interesting, but you only get 1 of these, and then you only get 1 more per per round. So they're not going to come too much into play, but they're not also don't seem like they're really a driving force in the game either. Next are these objective cards here, and now these are going to score you points here. You see this one's worth 2 points. I think they're all worth 2 points. And you basically have 2 objectives. So during the status phase, you may play one of these if it has a little status phase. So say you have more advanced categories with all 4 advances than any other player. So if you play this and this is true, then you'll be able to play it and you get 2 points. You can play more than one of these. So if you build these up through the game, you can just play them whenever. And then here's another one. So immediately after winning a battle against a player with more warfare advances or against an army with more army units, then you can play this. So you can kind of hold on to these, and you can satisfy either one of these. So you can play this if you satisfy this one or if you satisfy this one. And these don't seem too swingy. They're part of the game, and you sort of build these. What it's going to be neat about these, I looked through these a little bit, is it'll sort of give people a reason to sort of encroach on other players, not necessarily attack them. Some of them could be cultural. So it gives you sort of a, I don't know, like a sort of a flavor and a characteristic and a personality for your civilization. Quickly, before I talk about battles here, we're also going to reveal wonder cards here. And these can be built by any player. And they come with cards here. Let me just zoom in on that a little bit. And you've got the, the build requirements, a little bit of power that's added to them, and you can build that. You're going to take and put one of these little standee tokens here, into one of your cities, and you're going to have that power. So if somebody else, comes and takes over that city, they're going to get the power as well. And these, I think, are worth 5 victory points. You can see that down there at the end of the game. So this is nice as well. This is one of the aspects I really like about what they've taken from Civ and what they've sort of left out is very interesting. They've got the wonders, you've got the technology tree, you've got the mood, which I really like. That's one of the aspects I really liked of the Civ video game. And then we've also got combat. So let's talk about combat. I'll just show you the army units over here to have combat. Now you can also have combat with the naval ships as well. It works pretty much the same. So when you have combat, for the most part, what you're going to do is you're going to be able to choose to play an action card, and then you and your opponent could play it. And maybe if we said this one here, if you are the attacker, add a die to your combat roll. Well, basically what you're going to do is you're going to add a die for each unit. Now there is a stacking limit of 4 units on an individual hex, like so. So if I had 4 units here, I would take and roll these dice like this. So I'm going to roll that. Then I'm going to add that up. That's a fairly poor roll. So I've got 8, 10, 12. So instead of the game basically saying, okay, you're going to hit on a 5 or 6, what you do is you add up all of these and then divide by 5. So we've basically got 2 hits here. So 12 divided by 5 is 2, so it's going to exact 2 hits. So I really like that. Because these lower pips aren't just worth nothing. There actually was some effort exerted in these 2 points here. And then this one, like I said, if you are the attacker, you just add another die and add that to your total and divide by 5. And that's pretty much how combat works. It's very, very simple. Okay, so that's Clash of Cultures. This last thing I wanted to go over was the rule book here, and you can see one of the cool things about this, it's got an index right on the front cover. So if you wanted to look up culture and happiness, you wanted to look up the regions, the moods, how they affect the game, how they found the city, exactly how much you've got to pay, how does combat work. You can just look right on the front of the rule book and it tells you. So that is Clash of Cultures, and hopefully you appreciate the quick overview of all the components. And we'll see when I get a review done. It's going into holidays here. I've probably got one more sort of holiday video to do, and we'll see if I can't review this by the beginning of next year. Okay, thanks.